removing stress before adding stress is a really, really interesting concept. And all we're looking at here is how do we get our body back on our side? How do we look at putting the right things in place first so that when we add in the exercise or make the changes to the nutrition, the body actually changes, okay? And the issue that we come into a lot is that we start with the exercise portion. We start with dropping the food down. And whatever those mainstream changes are, I just want you to ask some other questions. Maybe that still is helpful for you. Maybe there's things are responding, things are going well, then fantastic. But if you're finding the body's not responding like it used to, or you really just want to set things up a little longer, because so many guys that I've seen have managed to drop the 5 kilos or even 10 kilos, but then they start to put that back on, or they start to get really stuck in a corner because of the way they've done that diet or that dropping the weight. So just going through a couple of steps and allowing us to look at maybe rewriting that story, rethinking that strategy, I think it's going to be really, really helpful. Okay, so if you're watching on live, guys, just give me a wave, say that you're on. It'd be great to see you. I can see Thomas, Rob, and Ash all on here as well. So good stuff. First thing I want to dive into, guys, I'll bring it up on the screen and we'll go into it from here. So the first thing I want to ask before we dive into things and kick things off is, if you're watching the call today, I simply want to dive into 4 areas and really get an understanding of where you might be in one of these boxes. Okay, so the first one is not consistent nor focused, right? You're in a position where you're really just stuck. You've jumped on the live today by mistake, or it's just popped up on your news feed as you went past, and you're not quite sure, what those first steps are. You haven't managed to do anything so far, and it's just getting an idea of what can I start putting in place? What are those simple first steps? If that's you, just write red below. That'd be great. If you're in the left top hand corner, which is that consistent but not focused, right? So maybe you're getting a bunch of workouts in, maybe you are keeping some sort of foundation for your diet, but you're not focused. You're trying to find new ways to do it because it's not working like it used to, right? It's you're doing the right things apparently, but the body's not responding, right? If you're in that spot, comment blue below. It'd be really, really good to see where you're at, and just so I can cater this conversation to you a little more, okay? The bottom right-hand corner here is simply you're focused but not consistent. So getting an idea of you're reading the magazines, you're watching YouTube videos, you're doing this sort of stuff, but you're really struggling to put some steps in place. Hey, Andy, and getting an idea of what those are, and we can help you sort of break those down a little bit more. So if you're in that stop, comment brown below. Okay, we get an idea of what's happening. I think it's a brown, maybe not. And then the next one up here, the top right-hand corner, in the top right-hand corner, is going to be your consistent and focused, right? So this is where things are going really well. You're pumping along. You're probably a client, and you've either got some steps in place, and you're also focused on the straight and narrow. You've got a framework, you've got a system moving forward. If you're in that spot and you're in the green, then comment green. It'd be great to see if anyone's there as well. Okay. Hey, Pat and Hugh, great to have you on. So yeah, just before we carry on, guys, I want you to comment below. We've got a good 7 or 8 guys watching currently. So I just want to get an idea of where you are in these 4 quadrants, right? Are we red? Are we blue? Are we brown? Or are we green? Okay, just get an idea of some ideas. I'm assuming most of us are going to be, hey, there you go, are going to be in the blue or the brown category, getting an idea of what's really going on here. And if that's you, then obviously this video is probably going to be pretty helpful for you as well. Okay, so just getting an idea of next steps there is cool. So I'm going to start off with something really, really simple. This sounds really technical and sciencey. It's really, really not. I just want to dive right into framing the conversation a little bit more today around how we can make some steps forward. Okay. So with how we burn energy, how does our body expend energy? How can we look at improving the longevity of fat loss, of things functioning at a high level? Okay. And that could simply be that the first part here, the very, very smallest portion, is going to be that EAT, or the exercise activity. So actual traditional exercise, whether that's your biking, your running, your weights, whatever, not your weights, your cardio type exercise. So weights is probably, the weight symbol is probably not a good one here. But I guess the actual activity of doing the weights while you're in the gym, it also counts. So it's looking at burning those calories while we're actually doing the workouts, right? We're counting the calories on the app. Please don't do that. You're watching your steps, whatever that might be. So the time that you're doing that actual exercise is the burning of calories in that little blue bit, okay? Or let's refer to it as energy rather than calories, because calories is very arbitrary anyway. The second one here is the orange bit here, the TFF, is the thermic effect in food. Now, this is a really, really interesting concept, is the idea of by eating more often throughout the day, we're actually increasing our overall metabolic rate or overall thermic response to these foods. So by eating more throughout the day, we can actually eat more food, which is pretty cool. And with a lot of our clients that have been in this diet mentality for a long time, where they've been eating less and less meals, right? They're having 2 meals a day, or they're having very, very small meals, and they're just having protein and veggies and no energy sources in there, or they've been on that diet for a long time. This is something they can really run into some issues with. And if you feel like you've really built yourself back or pushed yourself into that corner where you haven't been able to continue dropping weight, you've dropped calories down, and you've done more and more exercise, it's kind of that's that idea of pushing yourself back in the corner. Okay, so one of the goals, and obviously it's one of many ways that we can do it, but the idea of simply increasing the frequency of the meals, making sure there's always an energy source, either carbohydrate or fats, and timing of that's quite important as well, can allow you to start to increase that metabolic rate simply by eating more often. Okay. Now, obviously, that can go to the extreme. If you're looking at five meals, can be okay if you're training 5-6 times a week. But if we start going 6, 7, 8 meals a day, then it kind of has a diminishing return for sure. But just trying to make sure that we're not starting to always bring down these windows. Now, the question that might come up here is this understanding of what's my thoughts on fasting. Now, I think fasting definitely has its place, as does ketogenic, as does vegetarian, as does all these other diets, right? They can be useful for a certain window of time, and it can be useful for a certain task. Okay. I won't dive too much into that. We've done that a lot before, but things like ketogenic can be really, really good if you've had a brain injury or you're epileptic or something along those lines. Fasting can be really helpful, again, in this idea of autophagy and trying to clean up certain cells, trying to have a bit of a digestive break. But again, I think that's more helpful on a say a quarterly, a monthly basis, maybe once a week type thing. But as an everyday thing for most humans that don't have a significant amount of muscle mass and are looking to really look at longevity, long-term health, I would personally look at making sure that it's not an everyday thing. Now, we know if you're diving a lot into the whole biohacking world and looking at how often, there's definitely some really high promoters of it, and I can see their logic, I can see their science. But one of our big goals, especially when we're talking in this category, is the idea of really looking to improve our metabolic rate. Having and looking after that level of muscle mass we have is really going to improve our overall function and ability to burn more energy as well. Okay, so that's generally the thought process we go around. Again, we're going to go on a person by person basis, but just as we're talking to everyone as a whole, that's generally my theory about it. So hope that's helpful as well. Okay, any questions, let me know. The third one here is going to be that non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's actually quite a big portion. It's this big gray bit, okay? And that's going to be an idea of what do you do on a day-to-day basis, right? If you're a cleaner or electrician or someone who's running around on their feet all day, then you're probably going to get quite a big chunk of your energy expenditure is going to be through simply your moving and your day-to-day activities, right? Whereas if you're office bound and you're sedentary during the day, then that amount or that chunk is going to be much, much smaller, right? So we've got to really be mindful of bringing more of that traditional exercise in the form of walks or weights or whatever it might be to simply make up for one of these blocks, to make sure there's a good amount of blood flow and nutrient uptake, and making sure that, again, that metabolic rate is burning it the way it should, okay? The fourth one here, and obviously, as you can see quite clearly, is the biggest portion of the things coming through. Awesome, Justin. Great to see you on the green, mate. Awesome stuff. I think we're talking next week, so we'll dive in. On the metabolic side of things, with this big yellow portion is going to be that basal metabolic rate. And that's really where I want to keep our attention today, is what does that really mean? Because what this is simply meaning is at rest, right, without our exercise, without doing our stuff during the day, how much are we going to be burning at rest, right, without doing those things? So if we were to not exercise for a couple of days, hey, Matt, diving into, I think I saw you doing the fat loss quiz online, so I hope that was helpful for you, mate. With that basal metabolic rate, how can we overall increase that? Because as we were talking about with guys that might have been dieting for a long time and really pushing themselves in a corner and not able to lose weight anymore, or really getting really, really sluggish, low on their energy, then they can tend to see that biggest portion of the pie is not working for them, right? And there's this big concept of, are we looking to get our body on our side, or are we just going to keep working against our body? Okay, that's something they'll really want to dive into. All right, so it's looking at all the parts of that are really going to play a big part or a big role in how that works. Okay, so the way I'm going to go through this, or the way I want to look at this, is just getting an understanding of if these are any of the categories that you've been in the past, whether you've been calorie counting, whether you've been through diets or 6-week challenges, whether you have been really focusing on diet fasting windows, or really, really restricting the amount of meals you have in a day, or overall just starting to suppress the overall intake down. I want to tell you why that's likely not a good idea most of the time, okay? Rather than thinking about suppressing the food down, we want to look about up-regulating the body, really getting things back on your side. Really, really easy way to think about it, guys, is if you're trying to get rid of the weight and you haven't taken care of the stress first, right? So remove the stress before adding the stress. This is typically how most people in their 30s, 40s, 50s are functioning, right? They're trying to get that car moving, but they're taking all the toxic load, all the baggage, all the stress, all the overwhelm, the lack of structure, the lack of sleep, all that stuff is just stacking up on top and on top and on top. Okay, so the fact that the fuel efficiency is not going to be very good, you're probably not even going to get off the line, right? Ability to how far you actually go before the engine overheats or something really breaks down is not going to be all that far. And I think this is a really, really good analogy to look at how most people are approaching the diet. Is they're getting in the car and then they're trying to drive the thing. They're working the thing really, really hard. That might burn a bunch of petrol, or in this case, food. But what they're going to do is they're going to find that the rest of the body, the springs, the engine, the everything in that car is going to really break down very, very quickly, and they're going to run into a dead end, or they're going to have to literally pull over the side of the road before that car breaks down because they're taking so much with them, okay? And this is really what we're looking at and trying to rethink your thought process around how we get your body back on your side, okay? So I've got a nice shiny ute that looks a little bit different. And we can see that we've unloaded the trailer, we've put a bit of muscle on him, we've given him some good tires. And this is really where we start to be in a position of being able to get our body working again, starting to get things actually functioning and firing in a position that we can just keep driving this car. We're not going to have any worries with the engine. Hopefully, it's a Hilux. They should be pretty reliable to keep on going, things to keep on moving forward. All right. So what we're looking at is rather than being this weighed down with the toxic load and overall stress on the body, we want to get your body back to actually being in a position that it can actually respond, it can recover, okay? And a lot of things that are going to be, for you right now, what are those things you feel are going to be helpful to getting things back on track, right? If you feel like you're waking up and you're going straight to work, you're missing an opportunity to get the body set up in the morning, all right? If you're getting to the end of the day and you're working the whole way towards bedtime and then you're trying to get to sleep and you're tired but wired, what can I do to start calming the body down at the end of the day, all right? When I'm looking at exercise, rather than going through and having a really, really stressful day and then trying to add in more stress in the form of that same metabolic type stimulus, which that be circuit classes, spin classes, everything that's just more sweat-based because you think more effort will be helpful, right? If we can start to get an idea of adding in things like the weight training that's really stimulus focused in a central nervous system stance and getting blood flow through muscles, it doesn't stress the body out in the same level. But we're also having to be really, really mindful of the stress throughout the day. If we have one of those really, really big days, then go for a walk. If you have one of those more chilled out days or normal days, hopefully they're not always stressed, then we can start adding in those bigger workouts or those bigger exercise days. All right. But just really being mindful of those tweaks and adjustments we can make. So then diving deeper into that and really looking at what's making that so hard, right? When we look at the things that are on top of the car as such, getting an idea of this stuff here, we might be looking at the stress as one factor, but what is stress, right? We're going to be looking at the bike might be the work stress or your boss. The part of the trailer might be your commute to work and your overall time spent around certain people you're not happy with. But deeper stress could be that toxic load, right? The food you're eating that you're unaware of that's causing that inflammation in the gut. It could be unaddressed symptoms of thyroid or liver function that's really stressed out, that isn't allowing things to work properly. That's going to be a massive stress on the body, right? So you've got the mental stress, being stressed out at work, being angry at people the whole time, arguments with your kids or wife or whatever it might be. That's a mental stress, right? We have a physical stress, which is again, the exercise portion, trying to outwork things or simply physically not repairing because you're not getting enough sleep, whatever's going on there. And then there's a third stress, which is going to be what you're consuming and actually how that's responding with the body and looking at how, the biggest toxic load that you take in is typically through what you consume, yet very few people think about what they consume as being helpful in regards to the quality. It's usually a quantity game, right? So what you can see, hopefully with today's conversation, if I'm explaining it right, is the goal that rather than suppressing the overall food quantity down, if we start to offload this stress and toxic exposure that the body is, the body, or in this case, the car is exposed to, then we can start looking at increasing the overall metabolic rate, right? We get our hormones back on our side, we get our recovery back on our side, we get our energy and the right type of exercise. and the sleep and all these other things that allow us to remove some of this other baggage and weight that is making it so hard to either get off the ground or continue to move step after step. Okay, if that's making sense for you guys, just give me a thumbs up. I really hope that's giving you a nice analogy. It's just the idea of if the body's not working, or in this case, if the car's not working, we need to remove that extra stress and that weight that's coming with us. We need to look under the hood and see why things aren't functioning and firing the way it should, right? If things are overheating the whole time, or the tires falling off, you'd probably stop off at the side of the road and check what's going on, or turn into a mechanic and see what's happening to really get an idea of how we can get that body back up to full speed, right? Sometimes it's not always a DIY job, right? And that's obviously why we're working with hundreds of clients to get an idea of how they get their body back on their side, rather than simply going it alone, pushing harder, trying to outwork a bad diet, or not being unaware of what those foods are that are actually causing those problems. That's really where we go, okay? So if that's something that's something you're struggling with, guys, if that's in either of those categories, whether it's a consistency thing and you're struggling to really continue to take steps forward, maybe take that first step back and look at, hang on, my body's working against me. I'm trying to get in the exercise, I'm trying to put these things in place, but my body's not on my side. So I need to actually step back, look under the hood, see what's going on, maybe get someone in my corner to help me with that process. And then those steps with consistency are actually going to be so much more helpful, okay? Whereas the other part there with you're consistent, but you're not sure where to focus, right? Then it's simply an idea, or sorry, you're focused, but you don't know where to start, is an idea of, well, now, rather than looking at the best workout or what type of workout it needs to be, it's a case of, what's my body telling me first, right? Am I bloated all the time? Am I gassy? Am I tired from certain foods? What are they? Can I identify what those things are? If I'm looking at the sleep side of things, am I waking up during the night, right? Rather than just brushing it off as, I need to get up to pee. It's like, well, your body's actually waking up for some reason, and then you're getting up to pee as a byproduct, or even that's part of the byproduct. So getting an idea of getting really good quality sleep, making sure you're waking up well rested, making sure that your stress and how we structure the day and how we can set up things a little bit different, so that there's actually some time in the day for you so that you can really move through that day, is going to be really, really helpful as well. Okay, so if you're in either of those two categories, like we said, that I believe it was the blue or the brown before, hopefully that gives you some thought process, or hopefully just some questions to ask yourself and how you can start making those steps forward again. All right. So as a little summary, just to get an idea of what that looks like for you, the big steps that we go through, or going through these steps, is getting an idea of, if your body's working against you, it's kind of like the horse that's pulling back on the reins, right? I've been in this position, and you're not going to win by pulling harder, right? You've got to find a way to calm the horse down. You've got to find a way to kind of work with the horse and then start moving forward, right? If you just keep pulling on the thing, you keep freaking the thing out, that's like your body getting more and more stressed out and being more and more stubborn to change, right? We see this a lot with guys that are very, very, again, coming back to toxic stress, a lot of liver damage, or overwhelm or stress coming through. It can be really, really stubborn for the body to lose fat. So if we look at removing that toxic load, removing that stress on the body, then that horse might actually start walking with us rather than constantly pulling against us. All right. So if your body's working against you, start looking at, instead of pulling harder, fixing those issues under the hood. Okay. If you want to win long term, you've got to start looking at those base points. So like I said, there's going to be the sleep aspect, there's going to be the stress, and as what we really go through a lot is going to be those gut hormones. This is very much, as I wrote here before, the idea of removing those health anchors in phase one is really identifying what those linchpins are for you. So this R4 method, if you're not already aware, is part of our system, part of our framework that we use within the Meta Project with all of our clients, is really taking them through each one of these steps. And before we dive into the fancy stuff, recalibrate and reinforce and really building out that blueprint, R1 and R2 is very much around the conversation that we're having today, right? Removing those initial anchors, those stresses on the body, and then we can go a little deeper and start to understand from a gut hormone metabolism level, how do we really start ramping things up, make it start looking like the Hilux rather than whatever that thing is, all right? So try to make sure that to get things back on track, really front-loading your health, then that's going to be a really, really big step. And that's how we approach it, how we've had a lot of success with our clients, to make sure that long-term, this stuff continues to work rather than just backing you into the corner, all right? That's all I had for you today, guys. Short and sweet, hopefully still 20 minutes, but just simply rewriting that story or rethinking that story around how we can start to integrate some more steps rather than going straight into the exercise or straight into suppressing the food down. What are those things that may be stressing your body out and not allowing the body to function as a whole? If you nail that first, we're getting a lot deeper, we're being a lot smarter about it, and we can probably do it a lot longer as well. All right. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far, guys. Great to have so many of you stick on for so long. And if there's anything I can help with below, just comment below. I'm more than happy to answer a couple questions there. And hope to see you all again soon. Bye.